Hello everyone, this is Joni, and I am here to try to make a lantern, and I have been having trouble deciding really what I want to put on it. I think I'm going to use this for the center of my table in the kitchen, and I have some ribbon that I bought, and I've already gone ahead and cut that so that the video wouldn't be so long and everything. But before I start, I do want to thank all of you who have prayed for us during this time with the loss of Eddie. He passed away, and excuse me, we will miss him greatly. He was a fantastic young man. He was a minister, and he had preached for several years. And he was, every time you saw him, he was the same. He wasn't one way one day and some other way the next day. He was always the same. He was very giving, and I'll just tell you this one little thing that happened to him to show you just how giving he is, and or how he was. And I know that his two sons, he had two sons, they were in the paratroopers, and his wife, they've been married I think 40 some years, high school sweethearts. And he just loved his family so much. But if he were out at night or something, like I said, he was a minister and he had to travel to his church. And his church was out in the country. And so he would drive out there to his church. And he was coming home one night, and he saw three cars by this sort of like a park and ride, is the way I understand it. And there was a policeman down on the ground, and there were two gangs in the other two cars, and they were on top of the policeman, and they were trying to get his gun. And what does Eddie do? Eddie does what Eddie always did do. He didn't think about his problems or could he be hurt or anything. He stopped and he ran over and he got a hold of the guys and started throwing them off one by one, and probably two at a clip, I'd say, knowing him the way that I did. And he got the policeman until he could get on his feet, because he couldn't even start to get on his feet. He got him to where he could get on his feet, and then together they fought those guys off until they ran and jumped in their car and took off. And so for doing that, the police department in Charleston had him a really big dinner, and it was in the paper and everything. And they invited his family to come in, and they gave him an accommodation for it. And that was just one of the things that he did, because one night he was on his way. He had been out and it was late and it was really cold in the winter. And he was on his way home, and he was alone. And I think he was coming in from work, because he worked for Kroger company. It was a grocery store, in case some of you don't know what it is. And he was their head butcher for years and years. And he was coming up the interstate, and there was a car pulled over, and there was a man out trying to work on his car, and he could see that there were children running around there, and his wife was sitting in the car. So he stops and goes over, and he starts talking to him, asking him if he could help him. And Eddie knew a lot about cars and things like that. He was a very good mechanic. So he started trying to help him, but he saw that they couldn't get the car fixed that night. What does Eddie do? He gets that whole family, puts them in his car, and takes them to his house. Takes them in the house, puts them in a good warm bed, gives them food. The next day, he helps him get his car started. And then, knowing him, I would say he probably gave him money to help him the rest of his journey until he could get home. But that's the kind of man he was, and I'm extremely proud of him. I always was proud of him. I took him to see his first movie when he was about 5 years old, I'd say. And he had, we didn't have TVs back in those days because that was way back. And I took him to see the movie, and it was in 3D. And the 3D that they had back then is nothing like the 3D that they have today, because back then when they threw something, I mean, you had to duck because it looked like it was coming straight at you. So I thought that he would enjoy a cowboy, just like I like cowboys. And so I took him to a cowboy movie. And I got us popcorn and Coke and candy and all that stuff. And we went in and sat down. We started watching the movie, and gradually, I didn't pay that much attention to him because he was sitting there and we were eating our popcorn and everything. But he began to slide down off of his seat. And I thought, well, he must be getting a little fidgety. Maybe he's not liking the movie as much as I thought he would. Then the next time I looked at him, what is he doing? He is down between, sort of hunkered down behind the seats. And I took my hand and I put it down around his neck right here, and I said, honey, I said, what's wrong? And he looked at me and he said, Aunt Joan, he said, they can't shoot me through these seats, can they? So then I realized that he was afraid. And I said, oh no, honey. I said, this is just like when you take a picture on a camera. I said, it isn't real. There's nothing real to it. I said, just go ahead and come up here and sit beside me, and we'll finish our popcorn and our Coke and our candy and everything and have a really good time. I said, it's not real. I said, this is all make-believe. Well, he gradually began to come up out of his little perch down there that he had. And he got up and he saw that it wasn't going to hurt him and everything. So he thoroughly enjoyed his movie then after that. But I always had a good time with him, and I'd go get him and take him, bring him home with me. And we would do things together and everything. But he was a fine, fine man. But I just wanted to thank you all for that and give you all a little bit more of an insight into the type of person that he was. And I know that he's in heaven now. And his dad, which was my brother, passed away just a few years ago. And it's probably been, I'm not sure, probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Time is passing so quickly I can't keep up with it. But he's with his dad now, and they loved each other, that family. My brother had 3 sons, and those boys were so close until it wasn't even funny. And so he is with his dad, and he's with his papa, my father, and my mother, and with Jesus. So I'd say that there's a big, happy family up there, having lots and lots of fun, because all of my family is gone now except me when it comes to my siblings. And I think that all of them went to heaven. I really do. And so they're having a big reunion. And so I hope that they're enjoying every bit. I know they are, because there's nothing that you wouldn't enjoy about that. Now, I will show you the ribbon that I have chosen to make my bow with. When I start working on my lantern, I'll have to let my camera down some so that you guys can see this better. I got this white, and it's real shiny. And then I bought this, and I literally like that plaid. I think it's so pretty, and it's shiny. And then I got this one, and all of them have the wire in it and everything. This has grapes and pumpkins and fall colors and everything. And I'm going to put the cream in the center, and then put the plaid on the outside, on one side, and this on the outside of the other side. So that way the different, the white will separate the other two colors. And I think that will make a pretty bow when it's all fixed. So I just thought I'd go ahead and get that all done and get it all cut up and everything before I got on here, because it takes a good while to do that. And so I wanted to get that done. And I think that you can see the lantern. And this little candle that was in here was a darker color, and I took it out and painted it earlier. I painted it a marshmallow color, but the other color is still coming through. It's looking sort of grayish like, but I think that I can get the things around it to cover that up pretty much. Scoot that up a little bit. Now I've got to put some things in the bottom here, and I'm going to put some lights in it, I know. I'm going to put some, I know I want to put some leaves in the bottom of this, but I have some other little things that I got in some potpourri. There's not much of it, but at least it'll give a little touch of something down in there too, for other things to sit on. But there's some kind of shells, looks like it's been on the outside of some kind of a pod. And they're pretty. I've never seen them before. They were in the potpourri that I bought. And there's not very much there, but I'll have to cover over those with leaves or with flowers or something. Some berries. I have just, and pumpkins. I've got some pumpkins. I could put some little pumpkins in there after I get, but I think the first thing I'm going to do is put my lights down here at the bottom. And I have a set that I used before, and I cut them in two because they were too long for what I was using them for before. So I'm going to try to see what this, I haven't checked them out really well. Yeah, I think that will give me enough light that for what I want. Now when I put something else heavier on that, it will push that farther down in the thing. I wanted to put some little berries on it, but I forgot to get them out of the thing. I can stick them in there anyway. Some of the pit berries. I have some really pretty fall ones. I think that's going to light that up nicely. And I'm going to put this little battery pack right here where I can get to it quite easily to turn it on and off. Okay, now let's see. Let's just start seeing I don't have very many things here at all that I brought in here with me because I didn't know exactly what I was going to be using. So I didn't bring that many. I was thinking I'd like to use some of these if they aren't too big and put them down in there just around the sides of it, maybe. I'm thinking, no, though, that would be pretty. And then I'll have to have something up there with my bow. So they'll look pretty. It's tight in there around that candle. It's pretty big for the inside of this. If I had another leaf like that, I guess I'm going to have to take them off of this whether I want to or not. Which one do I want to cut up? I hope that all of you are getting along nicely, and this weather, just before I came on camera, my phone gave a weather advisory, and we were getting a heat advisory until, I think it said, I believe it said the 16th that they were giving an advisory. It is just terribly, terribly hot down here. I think it's like that a lot of the places. I really haven't been keeping up with the news all that much. Use some smaller leaves, I know that. And I have smaller ones, but just finding things. Hard to see what these things are looking like, really. Make such pretty little things anymore to put in your things. I really don't like to come on camera without knowing, having some kind of idea of what I'm going to be doing, because I would prefer to have something in mind, but a lot of times I don't. In fact, I would say most of the time I don't. Just have a general idea. little thing is not going to allow very much to go in here because it is very, very tight in there where that candle is bigger. And it's hard to even get your hand in there to move the things around. I got a mosquito bite this evening and it is really itching. It's on my hand. And it is itching, itching, itching. I think I might cut this acorn. I think it's an acorn. Need something that will go just a little bit farther that will curve. And I don't, everything I have is stiff around here. Nothing curved. Guess I could bend it. See what I can do. I think it's gonna look pretty good. But I think these pumpkins are gonna be a mite too big. I think I have some that are smaller somewhere in the house here. I probably will have to rely on these berries. I like those. These were 97 cents, so I'm figuring I've got them at Walmart. Some of this stuff I've had for a couple of years. I know I used this little lantern last year. I believe I used it on my island. I like to reuse the things that you have. Because I really don't have the room to buy anything else, or much anything else, I'll put it that way. Because I am running out of room for anything. I had dinner with Tanya and her husband this evening. We went out to eat and had a pretty good time. These little berries are gonna fit the bill, I'm thinking. Don't do that. That is really, really full with that battery pack right there. It's sitting right up against the door. I may have to take a little piece of hot glue, probably, and put this right on the face of the battery pack. This little piece of greenery. And I think that will disguise that nicely. And then I won't have to worry about that showing it there. Now I'm going to take some of these little tiny, I thought I had several of these. I'm hoping I can put those down in there, fill a few places. don't want to get it too cluttered because I don't like too many things in it. I think I'm more quiet tonight than I usually am. I usually am on here just jibber jabbing and telling all these stories and everything, but tonight I think I'm just a little tired. You all may hear my fan running. I have the air on, but I also have a fan right here in the kitchen on my cabinet running because on my sink, because it is just so unbearably hot down here. I did one thing today, that's probably why I'm so tired. I took my arches down in my living room, and where I have palladium windows, they had it had allowed the sun to come in of the mornings, and I did not realize that sun came in that strong. And it had been coming in the windows, and I didn't realize it, but it was shining on my arches and my painting that I painted, and it was even shining on my swan that I love so much in the dining room. And I took a tea towel in there and covered it up because I thought, great day in the morning. After painting that, I sure don't want it to be all faded by the sun. So I took those arches out today, out in the garage, and I took some varnish. I don't know if I like that or not. I took some varnish and varnished them, and now they look like they did when I first bought them and put them up in there when we first moved in the house. And they had faded out very, very light. And I can't believe that I didn't see it before now. And but when I did, it was sure noticeable. And how come I noticed it? I was fixing those wreaths to go on my arches. So I started looking at them, and I thought, gracious, those things have faded out. And then I started looking in my dining room, and here my beautiful swan painting was getting the same thing, but it hadn't faded yet, and I was very thankful for that. So I just put a tea towel over it in the mornings. I think I may have to get shades up there for the top of the palladiums, and put some of those up because I don't want those things to fade, and I don't want to keep a tea towel up over my things either. So looks like I'm going to have to put some of those little fan-like shades up. So I got those done, and they're out in the garage now. I haven't been able to bring them back in because that is really smelly varnish, I tell you. So I'm hoping that they will be done enough tomorrow. They'll be dried enough, and those fumes will be dissipated enough to where I can bring them in. It would be nice. but I may not be able to, I don't know. May have to leave them out there. Tanya said she varnished something, and I think she said that she had to leave whatever it was she had varnished out about 3 days before that varnish lost its smell. And that's nasty when you have to leave something that long. Oh, I gotta do something with the back of this. This ribbon, I know it has a wrong side and the right side, but I'm not, it is daggone hard to tell which one is which. This is my ribbons that I'm using. Now, I'm not using the typical way that the ribbons are usually used. I didn't want a bow that is as big as the ones that usually you see, because this is so little that if I were to use a large bow on it would just get lost with in the bow. So I just cut these just the way that I wanted to get them cut, and I cut them 26 inches with 23. About 25 inches long, and I'm using 4 each of the different ribbons. I just want to get these in the order that they go in, and then I'll start putting them on the thing right. Okay, we'll do that. Quite easy to get mixed up on with your colors if you don't have them out exactly the way they're supposed to be. But I think when it comes to the folding and pressing and fluffing and everything, it'll turn out just fine. My mother used to make bows like this to go in my hair. I had very long hair, and I wore it in pigtails, and she would always put ribbons and things in my hair. And of course, being Joni, I liked it down, and I loved it when she braided it. She would French braid my hair, and then I would leave it up probably a couple of hours, and then I would take it down. And you know what braided hair looks like when when you take it down. Oh dear, but I thought that was the most beautiful stuff that ever was. Children have their own ideas of what beauty is. And she would spend a good bit of time braiding my hair with that French braid. And then she would come in, and that hair would be sticking out straight all over my head. Not straight, it would be just a mess. And she'd say, "Why did you take your hair down?" "I just got it up." "Well, I just liked it down fluffy." So she wouldn't say anything. I had a very happy childhood when I was little. Very, very. I was telling my daughter-in-law the other day, I said, if my mother and my father would ever have gotten angry at each other and actually had an argument, my world would have come to an end, I would have thought. Because I didn't hear Mommy and Daddy argue. They didn't argue. And I told her, I said, it would have been just inconceivable for me to think that my dad would not be coming home that night for some reason. Because, my goodness sakes, he was there all the time, and so was Mommy. And my father told me, he said, that's what true love is. He said, when you find true love, you're not going to do anything to hurt the other one or to make them unhappy or anything. And he said, neither of you will do anything to harm each other. And he said, so that's what true love is. And he was right. You have true love, you don't want to hurt your husband or your wife or anything like that. And if both parties are like that, then that is true love. Well, now, for good or for worse, I have these fastened right here. They're not fastened yet, but they're up here. And I'm putting my chenille stem around it. And I'm hoping that when I start trying to take this thing loose, trying to see if I've just about got it fairly even, that it will start looking nice. Okay, now let's see what we can do. I think this thing is going to just about dwarf that little lantern. I was telling you all here a while back about when my mother and my father were dating, when they first started dating, and how hilarious it was and everything. My father, I had told you that when he got ready to get married, he was looking for a true wife, a wife that would take care of his children and his house. And when I say his, I meant both of them but right at that point, he was talking about his. He wanted everything the way it was supposed to be. And he was a very, very intelligent man. And so he saw Mom in church one night. And he liked the way she conducted herself in church and everything. So after church, he asked her, he said, would you mind if I walked you home? And she said, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. She said, I would have to have permission from my father to do that. And he said, well, maybe I could come down and ask your father if I could walk you home from church. She said, okay. She said, you could do that. So he went down the next evening. They were having a revival. He went down the next evening and asked her father if he would mind if he would come down and walk her to church. And Daddy was a very nice-looking young man, and when you talked with him, you knew that he wasn't some person you wouldn't want your daughter with. So he told him, said that would be okay. He said, you can come and take her, walk her to church. So Daddy started walking her to church during the revival. And so after the revival was over, they kept seeing each other. And so Daddy, he was really liking what he was seeing and everything, but he wanted to make sure. And my grandfather and my grandmother owned a big dairy farm. It's about 300 acres dairy farm, and they supplied the dairy products for the whole city. And their barns were as big as all get out. And they had about, I'm going to say, 12 inches of concrete in the bottom of the floors, because that's how they took care of their cows and everything when they brought them into, they had electric milkers and things like that, and they would just bring them into the stalls, and there really wasn't a stall, just a place that each cow stood. And when they were eating their food and everything like that, if they dropped any or anything like that, as soon as the cows had eaten and were going back outside, they just got big hoses, and they had big spouts that troughs like that they just flushed all that stuff over in there and flushed it right on out. And they never had to touch anything like that. And so they had a very, very nice place. It was really nice. And anyway, so Daddy, he knew that they seemed to be really nice, but he went to pick her up to take her somewhere, probably church, I would say. And they put him, my grandmother sat him in the drawing room. And so then she and my mother went off to do something that they had to do. So Daddy was supposed to wait there until they came back. Well, when they left, he said, well, he'd known, that they seemed very clean, and everything he looked at was clean, and everything was exactly the way that he wanted it to be, and it's what he was looking for in a wife, and in-laws, and everything. So, but when they left the room, we always got so tickled at this. They had a big area rug in the middle of the parlor, as they called it. So Daddy says, well, I'm going to see if they're as clean as they are, as what they seem to be. So he goes over and he lifts the rug up to see if it has any dust or dirt under it. Well, it didn't. It didn't have a drop of dust or anything under it. Well, that just thrilled him to no end, because he thought, that I guess if you weren't going to be very clean, that would be one place that you might forget to take care of. So he didn't find any dust, and after that, it was just Katie barred the door. He really was crazy about Mommy, and she was crazy about him. And so he asked my grandfather for her hand in marriage, and he okayed it. And my grandmother made my mother's dress, her wedding dress, and she made it out of Mom told me the name of the lace, but I can't recall what it was. It was a real, real expensive lace. And she made it all the way, it came all the way to the floor, and her train came down below her dress and was behind, as she walked, it was behind her, like the trains do these days, coming behind you up as you come down the aisle. And then her veil in front covered her down past her, I believe it was down to her hips. And she had all this stuff on it, lace, and I forget what all kinds of lace it was. And it sounded like it was just absolutely gorgeous. And Mommy was just thrilled with it, and so was Daddy. And they got married, and I'll have you know, the guys, his friends, serenaded them all night long. All night long, now if you can believe that or not, until the next morning. And Daddy wasn't too happy about that, because he thought that was a little absurd. It was taking things a little bit too far. But he loved that woman. Oh my, he loved her. And she loved him. And they had true love, and they were married. Would have been 50 years, but got married on the 4th of July. And that's not sitting very good. They would have been married 50 years on the 4th of July, and he passed away on the 3rd of July. So they didn't make their 50th anniversary. But she would never look at a man after he passed away. She said she had had her husband, and that's all she wanted. She was satisfied. got this thing on here tight. Okay, so. And if I can just stick them down in there, I will be much happier than if I have to try to hook them to something. Because I would rather that I would just stick them in through here and they would stay. Okay, right here is the front of it. Oh, this is the front. Here's the front of it. And might try to do something else with that bow in the morning. I'm going to, I think, just turn the camera off and see what, get some rest. I'm going to go to bed because it's, what time is it? Oh, it's only 5 minutes till 6 a.m. So I'm going to turn the camera off and just leave my stuff sitting here on the table. I will leave that right like that, and I think I'm going to fix a cup of green tea. Probably need it after this. So I'll talk with you guys later. Hi everybody, I am through with my lantern, and as you can see, there has been quite a bit of change since I saw you at 6 o'clock yesterday morning. The bow was just too big for it that I made, and it was overpowering my lantern, so I just made one of the little bows like I did last fall that was on my candy jars. And if you want to know how that's made, just look up my video that I made when I was fixing little candy jars from the Dollar Tree, and you'll be able to see exactly how I made that. And I think it's much better in proportion to the lantern. And I hope you guys like that, and I'll talk with you later in my next video. Good Lord's will. Bye-bye.